Very excited to have Ben Brust, former Wisconsin Badger hooper of some note, a little Final Four experience in his background. Most of you all are familiar with him and the work he does with for ESPN. Ben, thanks so much for joining me, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Wisconsin Badgers and the NCAA tournament today. You think you're ready for that?
Yeah, you don't know some Barry Alvarez stuff that I got to bring to this from a tournament standpoint.
Let's hear it.
Going back to 2014 at the Bradley Center at Oregon, my brother Jonathan can be very loud and I was worried that the parents would be annoyed by my brothers, but they ended up loving him. And apparently Barry did too, because we were playing Oregon at the Bradley Center. And my brother told me a story. I didn't believe it. He told me he got the Oregon Duck to flip him off. And I was like, yeah, whatever. He's like, Barry Alvarez loved it. And so I ran into Barry, and every time I see Barry, he brings it up. It's crazy. Like, Barry was like, your brother was amazing. He was rattling that Oregon Duck mascot, and he got him to flip the bird. And so the fact that Barry loved that is always a good thing.
That's good stuff. You want to be on the right side of the dawn, and if he remembers that, that's a great sign. And he probably remembers things that are not great too. So it's good to be on the positive side of that ledger. But yeah, that was a. Correct me if I'm wrong. You were there obviously with a much better seat than other people in the game. 85-77. Is that the final?
Yeah, that does sound right. It was way closer than that.
It was spooky for a while there.
I mean, we were down 12 at half, and as a senior, I don't remember a word Bo said in the locker room. I was just like, this can't be it. This can't be it. Because obviously there are a lot of guys come back and go back to the Final Four, beat Kentucky, lose to Duke. But a lot of us have talked about how that game helped sort of change the trajectory, because when we got to the Final Four, the confidence was there, and I knew everything they had come back, and they knew it as well. Like, once you got there, the goal was to win it all, and obviously they fell short, but as damn close as you could get. So getting that game and then beating the crap out of Baylor and finding a way to beat Sean Miller in that overtime game, it was a fun run, and then propelled into an amazing year for the boys in 2015. So that Oregon game at the Bradley Center is still when people ask hey, what's your favorite game? Is it Michigan? I would say it's Oregon and then Arizona, even though I didn't do anything because I just didn't want to mess up. I just wanted to find a way to the Final Four, and Frank put us on his back. Those are the games that stick out to me because, and again, that's why everyone gets so heightened, and why we're talking today is, despite everything and how proud we are of what they did in the regular season, beating Illinois twice, Michigan on the road, Purdue on the road, Michigan State, blowing them out at home, and competing the way they have, it's all good. But unfortunately, people really navigate, and I get why, towards tournament success. And this is the most confident I've been about a group, not like specific players, but about a group, about what they could accomplish moving forward here.
I agree. I mean, and it's, you probably know from observing me on social media, I've kind of fallen into the Greg Gard defender camp, from year to year, moment by moment. Not that I can't criticize it, but I've generally been like the guard fire guy as opposed to the fire guard guy. And it seems like every year that, he has a good regular season or magical regular seasons, it always becomes a little bit of a referendum on that year when we get into the tournament. And I've said before that he's had a little bit of an unusual, despite the fact he's not gone to the Sweet 16 since 17. There's always a reason. It's like it's been an odd series of events. It's always something that makes it a little different than the previous one. I think, and you mentioned best Badger teams. I think the 1920 team, they were ready for a run. And he had COVID. Of course, that wasn't affected everyone.
8 straight games to get a share of the Big Ten title, and whoop, gone.
They were the hottest team going in, and then even as you have, and people, and we'll anyone who's listening here, we're going to jump into this year in just a second, but I do feel we need to set this up a little bit. The year they played Iowa State with Johnny Davis, Chucky Hepburn doesn't, he broke his ankle, whatever he did. If Chucky Hepburn's there in the second half, that might not only just be a Sweet 16 team, that might be an Elite 8 team. Because they had Miami facing them next. That was a very beatable Miami team. And then, just bad draw playing BYU last year. It was a one possession game. It's just, sometimes you think of those times, but what someone brought up, and I agree with it, is those don't mean diddly. You know what? Right now, this team is different. It's its own team. It's its own dynamic, and we're going to talk about what makes this team so far this year special, and why I think both of us have a very strong suspicion this could be the team that breaks through to a Sweet 16. But anyway, they're 5 seed in the West, going up against High Point to start it off. Ben, do you think the 5 seed high, low, just about right? Where do you come down on that?
It's the right seed, mostly because again, you got to take the whole body of work, and I think Nick Boyd, from talking with Andy North, like Nick Boyd and Blackwell from when they arrived on campus, and Blackwell obviously stayed, but from a Nick Boyd and Blackwell trying to figure out how to play together, Boyd was going a million miles per hour, which we all love because now them figuring out how to play with each other. There was no animosity. I think it was just trying to figure out like how do we mold like this, as Coach Gard would say, this like alpha, and Blackwell is a little more even keeled, but very competitive and like, less vocal about it. And what you've noticed is they're now rooting for each other's success. And when you're rooting for each other and it doesn't matter who does what, that's a sign of a really good team. And the 5 seed comes from a place of they were outside of the tournament in January. They just were. And it's because of TCU. It's because of not getting and Villanova's in the tournament. But again, if you get one of those wins, it helps the resume. And then maybe you don't drop either USC or Oregon, and maybe you're a 4 or a 3, with what they did late. So it's a byproduct of the entire body of work. But I've been saying they're a 5 seed playing like a 3 seed right now. That's how I look at this team, despite what the seeds are. I look at them as like playing like a 3 seed who has the potential to beat anyone, as we already have discussed.
Yeah, I mean that's really good analysis, and I'm right with you. I mean, we talked about some past teams, and we brought up 1920 with that 8 game winning streak. This team doesn't have an 8 game winning streak, but the level of difficulty of their last 8 to 10 games relative to that 1920 team was significantly higher, and some of the higher wins were just incredibly impressive. And you lose to Michigan in the Big Ten semis on a 3-pointer by the Big Ten Player of the Year. You can live with that. I mean, I'm never happy to see them lose, and it would have been exciting to play in the championship, and I get all that. But there was a little part of me that knew what happened last year, and you get to the championship and you lose it the last couple of years, actually, and maybe you're a little bit tired. I was okay. I think they showed out in the Big Ten tournament that they got the seed they needed to get, earning that 5, and then having an extra day to rest, especially now as we see this, one of the absolute earliest games we have on a Thursday across the country. I think that worked out really well for the Badgers. So I was pretty pleased with that 5.
Yeah, I mean, there's arguments to be made that like some of the best teams like UConn has gone and won the Big East tournament and a national championship. But the difference I'd say here is you also were without Nolan Winter, and as you mentioned, you're flying across the country. But like at least when you look at everyone who's in their bracket, like I'd say like I break it out obviously by weekends, and this weekend Arkansas's got to fly, High Point's got to fly, Hawaii, whatever. I don't know, and don't suspect that we'll see them, but everyone's got to do the same thing. And at this point, from a High Point standpoint, you just went from Yaxel guarding Nick Boyd to there's not a Yaxel on High Point. And so he's going to find a way to eat. And so I have the utmost faith. And despite the fact that High Point scores a lot, that's great. The Badgers do that too. And they do it at a really high level with arguably the best backcourt in the nation. So I think it's time to take all the excuses of, they're out in Oregon, or, I don't like the draw. It's the way it goes, and it's what you make of it. And if you think about it, right, even in 2015, after we went to a Final Four, they didn't get a great draw either, but they still got to the national championship game, so you got to work with what you got. And if you're good enough, you'll find a way. And I think this team is good enough to find a way. And that's the difference between when I look at BYU last year, everything fell on Tanjay, and it doesn't always have to fall on one guy with this team. Getting Nolan Winter back will be huge from it. Like, he's kind of more of a consistent piece for this team, going to finish around the rim. He's going to get rebounds. He's not overly explosive, but he's, what you're going to get out of him. Wrap off the bench is going to be able to provide a spark that he's done the last 10 or so weeks. Carrington struggled, but like another opportunity for him to probably gain some confidence against a team that does play to the Badgers, liking of pace. And so you just got to be what you've been against High Point, and nothing, this team has seen just about everything all year long. And I always talk about defined roles, and this team has defined roles, and when you have defined roles and you know what you get from each person when they come in the game, and no one tries to do something that's outside of, what they know they're capable of, that means you're playing for each other, and you know what you need to do when you step on the court to help the team win.
Yeah, that's all well said. And I think some of this, and I'm going to get you my thoughts on this. Some of this stems a little bit from JMU PTSD from a couple of years ago. I'm not. I don't think that High Point is as good as that JMU team, which started the season. You remember beating Michigan State at Breslin. I mean, that was a really, really talented JMU team, 31-3 coming in. There's some parallels, but I don't think it's the same thing. But more importantly, as you pointed out, this is a very different Wisconsin team than that team, and that was even before Tanjay came in. There are just so many ways this team can beat you, and as we've seen along the season, not everyone has a great game in the same day. And like we saw with the Aussie knocking all those 3-pointers down against Michigan last weekend, there's all kinds of guys who can step up that you're not necessarily expecting if for some reason Boyd and Blackwell are not knocking them down. So looking at High Point, again, this isn't the denigrate High Point show. I understand why people are giving them hype, but they are such a sexy Lexi pick right now. Oh, it's just amazing. It's not just Snoop Dogg who picked him. I think it's because their name is High Point. I think that's probably why Snoop Dogg picked him, but I just throwing that out there. But they're a real sexy upset pick. And that's okay because upsets are fun, unless you're Wisconsin. But I looked into the metrics, and again, I'm not saying they can't beat Wisconsin, but I'm not seeing – all you can do is look at the games on paper. They haven't played a quad 1 game all season. They're 0-2 in quad 2 games. Their best win of the year is Incarnate Word. Their second best is Winthrop. Their third best is Winthrop. Yes, they're good, but does that success that they had running their system, does that project against a team as good as Wisconsin? I guess we'll find out, but I'm not as bullish on High Point as some people are. So I'll just get it out there.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. Especially when we talk about those quad 1, quad 2 things. Even like for Miami, Ohio, I think they are 2-0 in quad 2. Like at least they even have some quad 2. They didn't have any quad 1. But think about how flawed they are from a losing to UMass, a 7-win team in a MAC. Like I don't care if they didn't have to win to get in. It just shows the vulnerability of some of these teams. In the mid to low majors that are, playing in these high profile games against really good teams. And again, I just don't want to fall into the trap of, because of who they're playing and because of the noise around it, let's not forget what we were all feeling before the bracket came out. Everyone felt this way. And that is whoever is by the Badgers is going to fear being next to the Badgers because no one's going to want to play them right now. When you hear Brad Underwood say after his draw, then I'm so glad I don't have to play Nick Boyd. Well, guess what? Everyone else that plays the Badgers is going to have to feel that same thing, that a team that I think can make the Final Four that has a tough way to get there with Florida and Houston, I believe, on their top and bottom. But that's a team that has a lot of talent and size and skill and 5 itches, from Eastern European. It usually comes with a lot of experience and that European talent that I think is translating a lot into college basketball. So again, people, if you're finding yourself doubting, remind yourself of what you've watched and what other people are saying about the Badgers, because the Badgers feel that confidence too. And let's not forget that now that the noise is around High Point, they thrive being an underdog. Even though we're not an underdog in this game, right? They're favored by 9.5.
Right.
The feeling of them being an upset pick is, hey, we're not respected. And when they show up with that chip, they bring it.
And that's, again, I was thinking, should they need it or should they not need it? But the reality is, and I think they'd freely admit this, certainly Nick Boyd would, the Badgers have played their best basketball when there is a chip on the shoulder. When we're going into Chrysler against Michigan, the first game, I think it was like a 15-point dog.
Yeah.
yeah, that win might have surprised me a little bit, but as the year went on, I stopped being surprised by these kind of wins. I wasn't shocked when they beat Purdue in
No,
their dome. I thought that was like those teams match up pretty evenly, and I wouldn't. We'll get to this in a minute. I would relish the chance, much like in the year 2000, of seeing Purdue there with a chance to get to the Final Four down the road. But so Arkansas, and you're mentioning when people see the Badgers, Nick Boyd, I guarantee you when John Calipari saw that draw after his team who came in fourth place in the SEC and just steamrolled the rest of the SEC, and they had a pretty good matchups. Well, let's be real here, but they did what they had to do, win the SEC championship. He sees Wisconsin there as the 5, and then Zona as the 1. FML. I cannot imagine he was overjoyed with seeing that. And that's a coach who has given Wisconsin heartbreak, as you well remember, sadly, and also suffered heartbreak at the hands of Wisconsin. But he knows what Greg Gard's all about, and he's a smart basketball mind. And I don't think Arkansas, the fans may feel differently because that's slow plotting Wisconsin. These things they don't really know. That's not the way it is anymore. But I think as tough a matchup Arkansas is for Wisconsin, and I'm going to get your thoughts on that in a second, it's equally the same for Arkansas. Wisconsin, if they get there, I think they will. That's going to be a terrible matchup for Arkansas. That's not a great reward for winning the SEC title.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'd be lying if I said if that was the team that I wanted to have. I mean, like even pre blanking on his name has been in the news for 2.1 pounds of marijuana from Alabama.
Yeah.
Like I would have loved Alabama, even with I think it's Holloway as a 4 seed versus Arkansas. They don't guard a soul, even though they can score a bunch. Like the Badgers would eat them up with their efficiency offensively. The scary part to me, I think Acuff is the best player in the country. Like he is hands down the best player. I think he's undervalued in some of these mock drafts in the NBA. Because I haven't seen a guy like this in terms of like just his playmaking ability. He can really pass. He can get to the rim. He can shoot at a high clip. 40% from 3 for a 25-point per game score is ridiculous. But it's not underplaying Acuff. It's Brazil, number 7 on Arkansas, is an absolute monster. I mean, he plays above the rim. He blocks shots into the stands, offensive rebounds and finishes. Like that's the scary part for Arkansas for me is that above the rim athleticism. Like the Badgers have played some big teams, but when you think of Mara, when you think of the Illinois bigs, when you think of Purdue's bigs, none of them really play above the rim at that size the way that Arkansas's big does. So he is the scary part. And he has the ability, believe it or not, to step out and shoot at 6'10". So that's the scary matchup for me in the Arkansas because Acuff's going to get his, right? It's just about, making it tough and making the efficiency low. But you also have Boyd and Blackwell, and you can't forget about that from a guard perspective. I'd rather have those two than just that one. So it's the big that scares the crap out of me. But otherwise, again, nothing's easy. You just got to go take it.
Yeah, agreed. And yeah, I mean, I also was not overjoyed seeing Arkansas.
I think you might have been on a tweet reply when somebody had mentioned, who do you not want to play? And I think I said Arkansas like a week ago or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, not a great. I don't getting that like traditionally, historically, all that very anecdotal stuff, but the athletic long teams traditionally are not our favorite opponents. I would say we beat them. We know our teams are good, but yeah, I think this game is. I called it a coin. I made my prediction show, which went up yesterday, and I called it basically a coin flip kind of game. But I did pick Wisconsin, and I guess I'm tipping my as far as what I picked. But I'm going to pick the Badgers to pull this out in a very close, could go either way, down to the wire kind of game. I just hope that guard plays good enough, and I hope the defense is good enough, and I hope Nolan Winter is maybe a little more spry than I think he might be by then. But it's just going to come down to good players executing at big moments, and this team has proven it can do that this season, where other teams I wasn't so sure of.
That's
That's where I'm coming from.
exactly it.
What's your thought on that game?
I mean,
If it is Arkansas Wisconsin.
yeah, I mean, I see it the same way. I mean, you have a guy in Acuff who has made big plays late, and you also have the Badgers who, again, have risen to the occasion. Won't be scared of the moment. You know, if this was a team that beat Michigan on the road and beat Illinois on the road, but then didn't follow it up by hammering Michigan State, beating Purdue on the road, beating Illinois in the Big Ten tournament, and you're again, this is why they're a 5. That's why I believe. And again, they're playing like a 3. So I go back to the fact that they've been a part of these top 10 to top 15 team games, and it's on a neutral site. You're not playing at Arkansas. It's as equal as it gets. And if you have a team like the Badgers with guys who can make plays late, because this is what Nick Boyd did at Purdue, he continues to amaze me how he can continue to get to his left hand and find crazy ways to finish. I believe in what I've seen enough that I have to go with the Badgers over Arkansas. I feel like going into tournaments, I'm typically skeptical of the draw. Whereas this year, I'm like, the draw is the draw. It's time for them to show what I know they are, and will hopefully be.
Yeah, I think we're of a very similar mind on this, and really, I haven't done any sort of statistical survey on it, but I feel like there are a lot of Wisconsin fans who are kind of in this realm where we are, that they have seen enough this season where we have evidence that this is a Wisconsin team who can win the kind of games like we're going to have to win to beat Arkansas, or heaven forbid, play Arizona and do something there. But we all have that little in the back of our mind, that little thing kind of talking to us saying, yeah, but they always, they can't do it in March. And
I get that though, right? Like you
yeah.
can't ignore that it's been almost a decade since the Sweet 16. Like you can't ignore that, but you got to go with what you've seen and trust what you've seen that it's going to deliver. Otherwise, what are you doing this for?
Exactly. You just got to believe. So we both have them beating Arkansas to advance to the Sweet 16. Are you willing to push your chips in the table any further than that on this team?
That's what's interesting. I try not to get too ahead of myself past each weekend because you really do never know. Like I think Utah State should have been a 7. I think they're a really, really talented team. They dominated the Mountain West and the Mountain, they finished off SDSU late. They're good. If they beat Villanova, I think they're talented enough and they're big enough to compete with Arizona. I'm not saying they win. I'm just saying I just try not to get too ahead of myself before you see how it shakes out. I think early on, you can look at some of these spreads in the first week and start sort of knowing, you look at Arkansas as like a 14, 15 point favorite against Hawaii. And Hawaii, I bail out of Big West late night when I have nothing going on after my daughter goes to sleep. So I've watched Hawaii play UC Cal Irvine, UC Davis, and all those games. And they're no match for Arkansas's athleticism. But a Utah State is a real team. And I think if they weren't in the Mountain West, they probably could have beat a lot of Big Ten teams and put themselves, as like a 6 or a 7 seed. That's just my opinion. So I'd be curious what happens there. But I go weekend by weekend. I really do. And Arizona's got a good big, but he doesn't play above the rim. So he reminds me a lot of what the Badgers have seen in the Big Ten. Jaden Bradley is obviously a great player, and Arizona's super deep. They got Pia back or Pete back, and again, they're so deep that Del Orso, who started for them for 2 years, is coming off the bench and had a big game in the Big 12 tournament. So again, just got to wait and see. It's not saying that they can't beat Arizona. This isn't the home and home that they had with Arizona, where I'd be very fearful. They got beat by 20 on the road the second year, or the first year that they played, and the Badgers beat them at the Kohl Center when they really started to play fast, and Tanjay and Blackwell and all of them started to get going. This team could beat anyone. They proved that. So the goal is get to the second weekend, reset, and then go attack who's in front of you. but my vision's not changing. You're supposed to go game by game, but I'm going weekend by weekend because that's how much I believe.
That's a credible way to do it, I think. A safer way to do it than long predictions. Yeah, I mean, I'll tip my hand. I mean, in my show, I said they're most likely with Sweet 16, and that doesn't mean they can't beat someone later. That doesn't mean I said I do best case, worst case. The best case was Final Four. I mean, that's not crazy. I do my 80% in the middle. I call it. Take the top 10% out, the bottom 10% out. That's not what I would be betting on, but I do think this team has it in them. But can they put two games together, and then we'll take a beat like you just suggested, and see if we can do the rest. But if they can get past Arkansas, you start believing a little bit. You just start believing because that's a high quality team. Arkansas could beat Arizona. And Arkansas could beat Purdue. So let's
Totally.
see what happens. Let's see what happens. Great. Well, any parting words of wisdom? I'm going to let you off here. I know you got some stuff to do. Really appreciate having you on. And before we do this, tell people who are watching this where they can find it. They probably already know, but I'd love to make it more specific here.
Yeah, I mean, on 100.5 ESPN Madison, it's 2 to 4 for Kyle, Brust, and Ortman. YouTube at ESPN Madison there. And then in Milwaukee, we're on from 2 to 5 at ESPN Milwaukee on YouTube, podcast, everything, ESPN Wisconsin app, at Ben Brust on Twitter. Again, pretty easy to find me. Really excited for this time of year. This is the most bullish I've been, no matter what the situation is, where they're flying to, who they're playing. Just time for them to deliver what they've showed us throughout this entire last 3 months, so they can put it together and get the monkey off the back. And once that glass breaks and the ice cracks and they get to that Sweet 16, I think even the team and guard. I mean, guard does a great job of staying focused. And I know he answered a question earlier in the year about how, he wants his teams to experience what he experiences as an assistant. Right. So he knows what it takes to get there. It's just breaking through that, all those were Bo's players and guard this, guard, I'm sure he thinks about it. He's a human, but he also is a competitor and wants to get there too. So once we get there, maybe the shoulders relax a little bit, and then it's just you see even more unleashed from this team. So staying optimistic, and only optimistic because they've given me reason to. So let's have some fun.
Love it. That's not fake. That's not fake. That's real. Brust is one of the real ones. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks.
That is true. And if I'm called a homer this week, which I probably will, I'll take it, because next time I'm not a homer, someone just say you're an idiot. So whatever it is, I will say. But I'm telling you, I love the defined roles and what they've shown us this year. And I really, A, want it for Coach Gard, B, love watching this team play, C, it seems like they really get along as a team, D, defined roles, E, I'm just feeling it. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to get a reason to feel it, and they've given me a reason to feel it. And I didn't believe you could go A, B, C, D, E, but here we are.
And as the kids like to do, I'd like to see these guys up in S tier if we're going to do on those grid sheets. Yeah. But awesome. Hey, Ben, thanks so much for hopping on. Really appreciate you. Let's get the Badgers a comfortable, healthy win over High Point that doesn't raise the blood pressure too high. Sip a little sherry, take a day off, come back, and take care of Arkansas. It won't be an easy one, but I think they can do it.
They can do it. They can. They can do it.